Welcome to another episode of the Early Apex. I'm Rob, here with Dylan, and we've got a jam-packed one for you today.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So, just a couple weeks ago, there was a viral video that went around of a cop successfully pit maneuvering and arresting a guy who was doing an intersection takeover in Atlanta. And it is really, I mean, everyone was already talking about takeovers. How could you not? But this is really like spawned like, all right, what are we doing? Like, government legislation, because, the car community, we know about them, right? Known about them for years. But now governments are really starting to like focus on this specific issue as its own issue. Outside other things. And so if you haven't seen the video, check this video out. It's pretty wild, but essentially there's a guy in an F-150 in the middle of the day in Atlanta in what looks to be a very busy intersection, doing donuts as one does with a takeover. And then he flees, and the cop follows him, pit maneuvers him, positions his car to keep this guy's like driver door shut, hops out of the car, draws, and basically pulls this guy out of his F-150 and arrests him, and throws him in the back of the car. Takeovers. I feel like it's pretty unanimous. You ask anyone who doesn't participate in takeovers, and maybe a lot of people who do, and they'll be like, takeovers are stupid. Takeovers are like the ass end of the car community.
Yeah.
The guys that fuck it up for the rest of us type deal. But I don't know. I feel like maybe there's something more to it than that. And also like, like why? Like what, Yeah,
I don't fully understand the motivation behind doing this activity, right? I don't really know why someone would want to go about that and do this. When we were growing up, back in my day, it was all the stuff online that was going viral of cops trying to crack down on asshats. It was like street racing stuff, which in its own right is I don't do that. I don't support that at all. And it was all around LA. This is like pre Fast and Furious, or like just post, whatnot. But this is, I think, taking that up several notches in that, like, these people are doing takeovers and police are coming in there and they're getting confrontational with them, and they don't really seem to care. And in those viral videos that I remember of, it's like early thousands, there was a lot of fleeing. There was a lot of like, hey, we got to like do this on our own, do this away from everybody, not in front of downtown Atlanta in the middle of the day, just like take over an intersection and, race down that. I don't know. It's right. I'm not saying one's better than the other, but I think that this is just it is ramping up in terms of how brash and like in your face they're getting with takeovers. Yeah. I've never seen that before.
I think you could say older, like I think within car community and going fast, there's always going to be illegal activities, right?
Yeah.
There's always going to be that side of it. And let's be honest, we all break the speed limits in our cars. So we're all doing illegal things in our cars, right? But there's obviously a lot of degrees. And I feel like with the street racing culture, or, like say Japanese, like whatever, toge or mountain driving culture, or you go out to California and go in the canyons, like mountain driving out there and stuff like that, hitting the canyons. It isn't about it being illegal. Like, it isn't about that you shouldn't be there. It's just about this is fun to do, or like, racing and like, doing drag race and stuff. Like, it's about like the competition, that it's a fun thing to do, that you want to push your car to its limits. But ideally, there's no one on the road. Ideally, there's nobody there. Ideally, there's no cops there to arrest you or whatever. Like, it's about the act of what you're doing. It's about like that part. And I think that that is a differentiating factor between that and takeovers, where takeovers, like, it isn't about, like, maybe in a very small way, it's about, like, how good can you do donuts. But really, it's not. I don't feel like it's about, like, driver skill or competition or whatever.
I
it's
don't think
more
drifters. And there's I don't think there's a lot of crossover between, like, drift culture and takeover culture. It's just
right. It seems like takeover culture is about the idea of, I mean, by which the very name of it, of, like, power and like clout and presence, right? Like, you are taking an intersection, so now you're in charge of the intersection. You're preventing people from using it. You're whatever, in control, dominating, etc.
I think there's more parallel, and this is not to be mean. I think there's more parallel between takeovers and a critical mass ride that cyclists do. Right, and it's critical mass rides.
What the heck is a critical mass ride?
So
no one has any idea what that is, Dylan.
Okay, a critical mass ride.
It sounds like some like something they would do with, like, the space shuttle to, like, test it.
Oh my god! So a critical mass ride, for most of the people that have no idea what we're talking about, what I'm talking about is we just have, like, a lot of cyclists. Typically, it's like a fundraiser event. It's not like an illegal activity. Typically, it has, like, the backing of the city that it's taking place in or something like that. But the idea behind it is you get all these cyclists together and you're safe in numbers. And yeah, it's about taking up space and being, I wouldn't say necessarily safe, but, like, power, just like you said.
So it's like
we
about
have so many
having
people,
so many bicycles on the road, you can't pass them.
You can't pass them, and they typically have, like, a route. And they might even have, like, a police escort or something for, like, the fundraiser or whatnot. But it's about, like, this is our space right now, and it's a critical mass. Like, you can't really...
You bastards.
You can't really, power in numbers. I find that mentality is more in parallel with, like, a takeover than what street racers are doing, or like what toge people are doing, because a lot of times, those, I'm not saying that people aren't shitheads. People are totally shitheads. People race on the highway around other, bystanders all the time, and that's stupid. But typically, you want to do that away from people, and there's a culture that supports that. Like toge, I think you see that a lot, right? I mean, part of it is the fact that the mountain roads are away from other things, but, like, that's what it's all about. It's about going up in the mountains, away from other people, doing your own stuff up there. I think that there's a lot more varying degrees of drag racing, especially like highway racing and stuff, but there is, like, an element of that. You see a lot of videos. They might have, like, a dead end road or, like, a shut off area, or even just, locally,
right.
Mountain Reed and Rochester.
Trying to be, I think, like any street drag racing, you're not trying to be confrontational. Like, you don't want you want no cars to be on the road. You want no cops to be there.
Yeah.
You're, like, filming it and stuff, but, like, it's not about, like, the spectacle or anything. It's about all the other pieces.
You don't have this mob mentality that you see getting played out on, nice delivery of the breakfast burrito.
Yeah,
let's go.
My delivery of breakfast from our new servant here.
But you don't get that same mob mentality that you do in a takeover in these other illegal activities, right? You don't have, mobs of people stopping traffic or getting in the way.
Yeah. I mean, I could see some maybe mob mentality at some of the drag races where you've got a lot of people down there, but
that's true.
No, I get what you're saying. I think that, like, the takeover thing is like pure mob mentality. Like, it's like
pure chaos.
Let's put ourselves in the limelight, right? I think this, like, idea of, like, putting it right in the forefront, like right in front of everyone's faces, I think you can draw that directly to social media, right? It's about creating a spectacle. It's about being dangerous. It's about breaking the law. Like, that's the purpose. Like, that's the number one purpose, right? Drag racing, street racing, the number one purpose is street racing, right? It's about competition. It's not about breaking the law. You will break the law, but that's not what it's about. But I think, it's about breaking the law in these takeovers, and it's about the social media presence of that. Like, whatever, being fucking more badass than the next guy or whatever, whatever that means. And I feel like you wouldn't have it without social media to like support it.
That's an interesting.
Yeah, I don't think it really would exist without having social media.
I think you might be right.
I think the social media is the point of it.
And street racing existed long before.
Right. It's like we had the craziest takeover. We got 10 million views. Not that even, I don't know, it's not even that organized, but it's like whatever. And then you've of course got like all the guys getting fucking hit at the takeovers, like guys doing donuts and people getting hit and getting hurt. And I don't know. I don't want to stand on a high horse because like that's happened all throughout racing, and like look at rally racing in the 80s. Like people are fucking getting hurt all the time and getting killed. And just to touch a car as it drove by. Still sucks. Still sucks, I don't know. It's interesting.
Do you know of any like sort of solution to prevent this? As a car enthusiast, I want this to not exist, obviously. Is there anything that we could do? I don't know. I don't know if there's anything that's possible for just like an individual to counteract this.
It's such a complex problem because you're talking about like a cultural, fad. I think it's like akin to asking how do we get less people to overdose on XYZ drug. It's like this is a really complicated issue, right? It's like, do you force social media platforms to stop, supporting these videos and automatically take them down, or do you just up police enforcement and just keep arresting more and more people at them, or I'm not sure.
I'm wondering, not that I don't want this, obviously the goal is to have it stop, but I'm wondering if it is just a fad and we see it dissipate on its own. I don't want to talk too specifically in generalities, but typically the people that I see in these videos are younger than us, right? It's the generation coming up. Are they going to grow out of this? Are they going to like look back and realize, what shitheads they were, the people that did partake or something? Or I
think absolutely.
Well, yeah.
I think no doubt it is like something you do when you're 16, 18, 22, maybe up through your 20s. But like, I think like almost anything like that, you get older and you're like, what was the point,
I don't know anything short of that. I don't know of like any sort of act to simply like stop.
We really set ourselves on the big question on this one.
I know. And we were supposed to come up with you and I, Rob, we were supposed to solve this in our 20-minute segment of our, the early Apex.
Submit this to the Atlanta Police Division.
The Atlanta PD. I will say, obviously like overwhelming support for that officer. The car community as a whole is looking at that officer as, a hero, and at the very least, like, you read all the comments, you're like, thank God, get this kid out of here, get this, get these acts from happening and shutting them down, that sort of thing. But I obviously we would want them just to not exist whatsoever.
Yeah. You know what, Dylan? It got to get more people at HPDs. That's it.
That's the answer for all of our problems.
I think there's like a program they run in Florida called like Street Racing Made Safe. I think they run it in quite a few states. I forget what organization runs it. And it's literally just like they do like drag racing events and like all this type of stuff and just like make it like cheap and accessible. But
I think,
I don't know. Like, I'm not even sure if people involved in the takeovers are necessarily otherwise car enthusiasts. You know what I mean? Like,
I know what you mean.
It's like, half the time, I mean, typically, yeah, it's a Charger. It's something like rear-wheel drive with power Charger, Challenger, whatever, a 300C. But, you know, maybe there's a way it's like there's something else more entertaining to do than a takeover. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, what if there were like uber cheap drift events or just areas where you could be doing like donuts and burnouts till your heart's content?
Yeah.
Would that solve this?
But then, you know, I think that comes back to what we're saying. I don't think the purpose is to do donuts. Because the thing is, they could just go to find some empty parking lot. It's not that hard to find an empty parking lot and do some donuts.
It's very true. Yeah. And you go,
I don't know.
Away from everybody else.
It's this whole damn generation, you know. They're just don't want to follow the rules.
This is the moment where Rob and I become boomers. These damn kids.
Yeah.
These damn kids. Yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. Yeah. I think there's also something else that's kind of happening too that goes hand in hand with takeovers is also the like ATV and like mini bikes that are driving all over cities and stuff. There's some parallel there.
All right. I think that's a really good point because I live near Philly. And Philly is super, super well known. I think it's like the city where people ride their dirt bikes and their ATVs through the city. And I've seen it 1,000 times. And it's a group or a gang, but I feel like that's not fair to put that
name to it or that title to it.
But it's just like a group of guys and girls like on stuff that isn't street legal, riding around in the street, and they're really loud and they'll pull wheelies and sometimes like, you know, go through red lights and stuff and just generally sort of like maybe be in the way. But you know what? Like every time I see them, at least like the times I have, like they aren't there to like fuck with other people. Like they're not there to like push other people off the road or like hit pedestrians or like any of that. They're just there because they're with their buddies, like screwing around riding a dirt bike through the city. And like, I get it. I want to go hop on a dirt bike and ride it through, you know, the burbs through my neighborhood. Like that sounds fun, you know? So like, I don't think they're out there to break the law. They are breaking the law, but like, I think the breaking the law portion of it is a smaller bit of doing that kind of stuff. Like, I think it's more about just like hanging out with your buddies and like, yeah, doing stunts that are dangerous and that type of stuff. But they're not also like out there to screw over the other people on the road. But I mean, definitely some parallels for sure. And like Philly has forever talked about cracking down on it, which is like near impossible because it just leads to like even more dangerous like chases on the street, which the cops never win because you're chasing a dirt bike with a cop car.
Yeah.
And you know, Philly's got lots of alleys and shit. Like it's not hard to run from a cop car on a bike in the city. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's fair to equate the two together.
Yeah. Good point. I like that.
You know, and the people that get hurt doing that stuff are the people who are doing the stunts themselves. Not most of the time, or you know, people don't pay attention, hit a car or something, but most of the time it's just people who are fucking around themselves. And it's like, yeah, the people who are getting too close to the cars at the events and like getting hit by them are also, you could consider that, but you know, they're not the drivers. And sometimes it is the driver just going and hitting the crowd around it. So
yeah,
I don't know. That's interesting. Philly's been trying to crack down on that for a long time, but it's like, it's kind of like a cultural thing in Philly that like, you know, this is what you do and it's fun. A ton of people do it. I don't think they're ever going to stop it.
Interesting. All right. Well, what do you think about this conundrum that Rob and I perhaps unwisely waded into?
Yeah.
It's complicated. It's
politics.
not. There's not an easy. Yeah. There's not an easy solution.
I don't know if it's. I don't know if you could call it like a car culture problem. I think it's more like a politics social thing
Social problem.
outside of this. Outside of the scope of our little podcast.
I agree. Let us know what you think down below. If there's any decent ideas out there.
Yeah, or if you have like that
ears.
secret, the golden bullet there.
Crack the code.
Yeah.
I want to know it. I want the code cracked. Please, for all of our sakes. All right, Rob. Well, it's my turn to take you on an incredible journey through our FNK segment on today's episode. And as a quick refresher, I'm going to give you 3 cars. You're going to choose to F, marry, and kill each, one of the 3. And today's discussion is semi-serious in that these are the cars that I am debating about getting if I were to replace my Miata, realistically speaking.
Oh, so you're going to make me pick for you.
Exactly.
That's
Whatever you
what's
choose is what I'm going to do as soon as I get rid of my Miata.
So the stakes are high.
Stakes are very high. Now, a little bit of background. I'm going to lead off with a car that we've discussed before on this on our podcast, but all can be had in the mid-20s. They're somewhat realistic for, I don't know. Is it really realistic to buy a car these days? I don't think so. I guess kind of, but it's not. These cars are not that much money in the big scheme of things. It's crazy to think, ride a bike. Screw these cars. But yeah, they're somewhat realistic in the big scheme of things. It's crazy how little $30K will get you in the car world these days. It's so weird looking at new car prices and realizing that. So anyway, these are all less than that. You can get them for. I'm going to send you the iterations for images on Bring a Trailer. They're not going to be the exact ones, but just know that I did do a little extra research than normal. I found all purchased within the past year in that mid-20 area.
Okay,
so keep that in mind.
A tight fiscal
window.
cap here.
Yeah, we're trying to. I'm seriously debating about these. So the first car that we have talked about is the E46 M3, and what I would love is the Laguna Seca Blue.
Ooh.
I absolutely love that color. A good friend of mine, Matt, he has one of these in black. I love this car. It's a great vehicle. I think the E46 is going to age really, really well. I think it's going to go down as one of the best M3s ever, especially here in the States. Maybe I'm wrong by that, but I really think it's going to age well, and I wouldn't be surprised if these start increasing in their cost soon. But they did make a lot of them. So it's not like there was any sort of rarity tied to it. I think it's going to go up more because of an analog experience that you just can't get with modern cars. It's the last inline 6 from BMW as an M car. So just a lot of cool things. As a quick review, this was around a low 5-second car. It's 5.2, I think, 0 to 60, or 4.9 perhaps. 4.9 it looks like. Mid 300 horsepower, 343. It's saying here, a little less torque, 270 torque, inline 6. People are pretty familiar with this car. This is the one that we talked about.
Yeah, the stats are well known on this guy.
And this was I recognized this during our segment on I think it was 60K driveway. It was when I was really realizing how reasonably priced these M3s
yeah, I feel like the E46 M3 was a car that 10 years ago was expensive for what it was. They held their value, and we all were just like, that car is expensive. Just like the S2000 was always expensive, in the used market.
Yeah.
But now I feel like it hasn't jumped up in cost and value that everything else has. Everything that used to be cheap is now expensive, but the M3 is still about the same as it was, which makes it reasonable.
Yes. Yeah. For sure. I totally agree with that. Yeah. yeah, when we were a little younger, 5-6 years ago, definitely was not a bargain by any means, but it just hasn't appreciated like the rest of the market. So that's option number one, definitely Laguna Seca Blue. Option number two, we've talked about this car a little bit, not in depth with this specific model, but I'm going to go with a 350Z Nismo edition. Believe it or not, there are sales of this car recently in the 20s. I was surprised in researching this. I thought I was just going to do a regular 350, but when I found out that you can get the Nismos for those mid 20s, it's like, hey, this is something to seriously consider. For those of you that don't know, the VQ, the sound is obviously infamous, but this is around a 300 horsepower, 270 foot-pounds of torque V6, 3,300 pounds. I think the Nismo version of this is cool. I think it's probably, I don't know, personally, I think it's aged kind of well. It's a little loud of body kit. I really have always liked the front bumper, but it's got a big spoiler, you know what, I'm not even gonna beat around the bush. I like the look of it. I think it's a little over the top. The rear bumper is what's really over the top. But you know what? If it's a Nismo and it came with the factory from that, I think it's really cool. I do.
Okay.
I think it's really pretty cool.
All right.
And now the last option that you and I haven't really talked about on here, but it might be on paper, and I hate to say this because apparently I must own some New Balances somewhere, because on paper, I think this is like my perfect car. It's the C6. It's the base C6 Corvette.
Oh, a base C6. That's what we went for here.
C6.
No, I thought you were going to hit me with the C5 Z06.
No. Well, see, the reason why, the Z06, it sounds a lot cooler. It's the more rare nameplate. But the C5 Z06, it doesn't have the top-down driving. If I made a list of everything that I want, which I've done, I don't, and I get rid of my Miata, one of the hardest things that I would lose would be the top-down driving experience. Yes, this is not a convertible, and I wouldn't want to replace the Miata with like a convertible Corvette or a convertible of any of these cars. But the C6, it's a target top. You can take that top off, right? And you still have more rigidity. Plus, I could fit my bike in the back. I could do all the things I could cruise on. I could do all the things with this car. And yeah, it's got the V8. This is a little more power than the others. 400 horsepower, 400 foot-pounds of torque. Doesn't rev as high, obviously, being the LS. And also, I think this is, do I have weight in front of me? I think this is like a 3,400-pound car. Let me check.
Now, assume you're talking a manual, because you sent me.
Yes,
I got an automatic.
I did.
Here.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was sending you the color because the color of this one would be yellow. Yellow.
Okay. Yeah. Yellow for this one, huh? That was like a release color. I feel, or close to it, because I remember this gen. That must have been a different yellow, but the track, whatever, the GT3 or whatever version of the Vet was a yellow. I also really like
the orange. You could interchange the orange and the yellow. Yeah.
Okay.
But and it's 3,250, so not a heavy car either. These are all
fiberglass body one. Oh, they're pretty light. Okay, that's interesting. Jeez. Yeah. Okay, so first impressions. E46 M3 is a classic. That's a great color choice.
Yep.
350Z. The 350Z. Yeah, no, I'm not a 350Z guy. It's always been a car interesting to me. Like, it seems on paper that would be good. Okay. And then all you hear is that they have like terrible understeer. They just don't handle well in general. It takes a lot to set them upright and make them like neutral, well balanced. VQs are kind of meh. Like, the sounds, everyone maybe loved it at first, then everyone hated it unanimously. Maybe it's coming back, but it's a polarizing sound for the exhaust note.
It very much is, yeah. For sure.
And VQ reliability in general is a mixed bag, I get. Yeah, and that's a lot of money for a 350. I'm surprised you can't get a 370, or did you not want the 370?
I don't know if I want the 370. I didn't honestly look, to be
Okay.
fair.
I mean, I'm sure you could get a
And it's
370 at that price point.
for 25 or less, you think?
Easy. And they're making the
Yeah.
370 for
That's true.
12, 13 years.
That's true.
But, okay. And the C6. It's just so bland.
It is. It really is.
You know, we could talk about like the potential, the performance potential, which is of course there,
Yeah.
but in stock form, it is so bland. I don't think I could do it. With a C5 Z06, I could just hop in a stock car and be happy for a while. Like,
Yeah.
it looks aggressive. I think they've aged to the point where they're a little like classic looking. Whereas the C6 is still just like a PT Cruiser. Like it was yeah. I don't know. It's just a bland era. And I don't love like the styling off the bat.
I will say this, of the three, the Corvette's going to require the most like modifications exterior wise for me to be able to live with it. Mm-hmm. Like the E46, you throw on a set of wheels, you're set. That Nismo, especially that Nismo, wheels, you're fine. But like, you gotta do some stuff to that C6, in my opinion, to actually make it an interesting looking car. Like you black out the headlights, you gotta do like something else up front. Like if you were to spec that out a little bit like a track car, you know, or just like some light aero, now you're getting somewhere. Now it's starting to look pretty spicy, but you know, the other two don't require that.
And then you bring out the question of should you have bought a Z06 and saved your pennies?
Well, but then I can't top down drive with the Z06.
Oh, even on the C6 Z06?
Ooh.
That's what I'm
I don't
saying.
know about that.
You know, if you save your pennies
Well,
for a
that's-
C6 Z06.
I'll have to look into that.
But-
Comment down below if you can take the top off of the Z06. C6.
Yeah.
C6.
I don't know. You might be able to. I mean, I know they definitely made it convertible, but you don't want that. All right. On these cars, on face value, the 350Z is a pile of junk, and no one should pay $25,000 for a 350Z.
Okay. All right. Strong words.
That's
That was
how I
an
feel
easy
about the
choice.
350Z.
That was, yeah. Not a lot of
You know,
deliberation there.
I would get one as like a drift car, maybe, or if I could pick one up that ran for $3,000.
I will say that might be one of the worst steering wheels I've seen.
It's absolutely hideous. The way that
terrible.
the bottom spoke comes down, it's like,
It is terrible.
What were they thinking? I don't know. I suppose maybe it matches the design language of that center console,
Which is
also
saying
bad.
much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
Interior is not a great place to be. Of the
No,
three, it's definitely the
no.
worst for sure.
Yeah. Even with the 3 gauges on the center console, it still stinks. So I'm just out on the 350, especially when we're talking about price here.
Okay.
I am going to do one drive in the C6.
Okay.
You know, it's got a lot of power. You can roast the
Does.
tires.
Oh,
Kind
yeah.
of get a feel for what that car is about, what the balance is like.
Yep.
I kind of feel like it's a car made for old people, and it's going to drive like that. It's kind of my feeling about a base C6. Considering I think what the average buyer is like 65 or something for a Corvette.
I am sure.
So
Plenty
yeah,
of golf
yeah,
bags and back problems. Yeah.
Yeah. So marrying the M3 coupe.
Okay.
A car I've also been interested. They're beautiful. I love this era for BMW. This color is great. It's a respected car, you know, in the community. I think the only thing that scares me about it is engine reliability. And, you know,
And the rear subframe tearing apart. I mean, there's a known fix for it.
right. I mean,
but-
the rear subframe is like, okay, you do the fix, it's fixed. Like it's
Yeah.
just metal, like, you know, welded
That's
together basically. But the engine and of course it's cheaper to fix it, right? Like, but if the engine goes in your M3, I don't know what it used S54. It was S50. Yeah, I don't know what it used S54 cost, but I can't imagine it's under $4,000, you know,
Yeah.
or $5,000. So that's an expensive piece in there that has to be maintained. And BMW's engine reliability, once they started using Vanos and having really complex, variable valve timing and cam angles and all that, like it's always been a sore point. I would really love an E90 M3. I think they're so cool, and the engine is just insane. Like it's such an incredible motor. I think that's probably like one of the cheapest cars you can get into like an actual exotic engine, right? Because that thing has actual individual throttle bodies and like it revs to 8,200 RPM, and it's a V8. Like that's probably the cheapest way you can get into like kind of an exotic engine. And yeah, I'd still be really worried about that thing breaking, that engine reliability.
I get that. All right. So those are your answers. You've got the one wild ride with the Corvette. You're going to marry that E46, and man, you no love lost over that Z. Okay.
No, no. Absolutely not.
So here's the thing. That you answered correctly, I think, to all those things. But the problem with this is, Rob, and this is why I'm stuck. If I don't have the Miata. So for the record, I agree with you as an FMK segment, but in the real world, IRL, in real life, I don't think I could get rid of my Miata and then replace it with an E46 M3 and be satisfied. I think
because
Corvette
it's not like a sports car.
Yes, I think because it's the do everything summer car.
That is my problem with M3s in general, is that people have them as their third car, but they're actually cars made to do everything like an Evo.
Car. Yeah.
It's like...
And if you don't live in an area like upstate New York that doesn't have salt, then that's your daily.
Yeah.
It could be your daily.
Oh, 100%. I mean, that was sort of like... That was the original purpose of an M3, was that it was a fast, fun... daily driver.
Yeah.
And I get it, but I also kind of like don't get it and disagree with it, of like at people who buy, especially STIs, actually STIs and ZRXs particularly. I'm like, why is that your third car? That's your everyday car. Get rid of your Tahoe or whatever, or your whatever, like, I don't know. What would that person be driving every day? They would get in their Subaru Forester. I don't know. But drive the STI every day. There's absolutely no reason not to. And then get an actual sports car, like an actual, like a rear wheel drive,
unless
low.
It's the salt. I could see the salt.
Okay.
I could see
for the salt. Yeah. But
remove that. But
I get what you're saying. It's not a purpose built sports car.
And then on paper, I made a list of, I still want the top. I want to like a somewhat impressive engine. I want it to be NA. It doesn't need to be 2 seats. I would love to be able to fit my bike in it. And then I'd love to be able to take it on a 6-hour drive and not get beat up by it. Like all those things point to C6, and yet at the end of the day,
I have a solution for you.
I'm not that interested in buying it. It's like a recipe where all the individual parts are really good, like avocado and chocolate and I don't know, great. Like individually, it's really good, but you put them together and it's just like, it doesn't work. It doesn't. I'm not that interested by a C6. Just not.
Okay, I have the solution. I'm about to send it over.
Okay. We're on a tangent here. We're past the FMK
we're
itself.
Past the FMK. All right. I just sent Dylan a 2010 Lotus Evora, 41,000 miles. It's a 2+2, 6-speed. And it's got a Camry V6. So from what I hear, reliability is decent except for water ingress problems. So you have a garage. You can park in the garage. So you're not worried about whatever water seeping in through the door gap or something, which is already a problem with the Miata anyway.
Yep.
And otherwise reliable. It's a Toyota engine. So that's covered. And you've got the driving experience of a Lotus, which is bar none the best possible, right?
I like where this is headed.
You've got some
we're going to take this offline.
sound.
This is interesting.
You've got some sounds from the Toyota V6. Like I've heard clips. They sound pretty good in these cars. I've heard them on the road. It's pretty good sounding. It's better than a 4-cylinder. It's mid-engine rear-wheel drive, so bona fide exotic. It looks exotic.
It's bigger than an Elise.
It's bigger than an Elise.
I could actually fit stuff in it.
Yep. You could theoretically put like a baby seat in the back seat for a while, at least to your kids like past, I don't know, 3. What else? It's probably not that loud inside. It's definitely quieter than your Miata. I think maybe, you know what? Is it not a convertible ever? I can't remember.
I don't think so. But, I mean, you are... Well, actually, I don't know. The roof line looks...
It's kind of
like it might be removable.
But I think that's a lot of it. I was going to send you an Elise, but then you said you didn't want to get beat up on a long drive, so...
Yeah. An Elise is like an even less comfortable Miata in like a lot of ways. At least in like base form. It looks like the 2+2 is a Targa. Whoa, look at this. Now are they in like the mid-20s? I don't know. I think they're a little higher.
No, they're not. You can find one in the mid-30s.
Okay. All right, we'll take this offline. I think you may have just cracked the code right on.
There it is. There's your answer.
Online.
There's your answer.
On podcast. Yeah, we'll take the.
Boom, live, baby.
Cool. Boom. I'm gonna be mulling this one over. This is interesting, huh? All right. Well, hey, what would you have chosen down below? And is there another good option to the conundrum that I face, which is totally like a fantasy? I don't think this is going to be happening anytime soon. But if it were to, what would be a reasonable, somewhat budget-friendly replacement? A Navora might be. It's a little bit of a reach, budget-wise, I think. But we'll stay tuned. Let us know down below.
All right. So at the illustrious and appropriately named The Quail at Monterey Car Week last week, Lotus unveiled an interesting car and also an announcement that's I find very interesting. So the announcement is that Lotus will not stop making internal combustion engine cars after the new Emira. That will not be the last one. However, they won't be production cars for the road. So what Lotus unveiled at the Quail was the Type 66, which is essentially a 60s Can-Am race car, but made today. And it's being made by the same division at Lotus that designed the Vija, the Advanced Performance Division, Lotus Advanced Performance Division. So apparently this is sort of like a special projects side of Lotus that's going to tackle all these sort of super special, limited production cars. And their first foray is this Type 66. They said they're going to make 10 of them. They're going to cost over £1 million, pounds, 1.3 million US.
Whew.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that the guys who signed up, Lotus was just told them, look, it'll be between 1 and 2 million. It's that type of customer, where they're not too worried where it lands. It's a beautiful thing. Essentially, the story is that the Can-Am Racing series spawned some incredible cars for the era, cars that were faster in some cases than the F1 cars of that era because of how few rules and regulations there were. So that racing series had some of the most crazy innovations for racing. And Lotus never got involved, but they were thinking about getting involved, and they had started planning a car, but it never got past, drawings and models. So Lotus went and found all those old drawings and basically took them all and then made it, but to modern standards. So it's got a carbon monocoupe, aluminum body panels. It'll have ABS. It has electric power steering. They haven't said what engine's going in it, but you can clearly see a beautiful stack of polished ITBs sticking out right behind your head. It's open cockpit, right? The Can-Am series was dominated by lots of American pushrod V8, so they said it will be a pushrod V8 aluminum block that's in there. But they haven't announced what motor. It's going to be a modern sequential transmission. So essentially sort of like your wet dream of like the beauty and sounds of a old school Can-Am car, but then all the modern amenities of your radical whatever, race car, track day car. And it looks incredible. It looks beautiful. It's something else.
That's crazy. It's I've never been one for Can-Am cars. This has totally changed my perspective on the entire segment. And those stacks, man, those trumpets out back, it's just insane. I dare I ask the price of this car before we got to the segment. It was just it's so much money. It's so much money. Like, I love everything about this, but it is so much money for something that, let's be real, is really small and not, I don't know, like,
you want a little bit more for your money. Why isn't it way more? Give me a little more metal.
Just there's not a whole lot there. Like, I know people make, homemade kit cars of, Can-Ams and all these other, kit cars and stuff like that. I get it. Lotus is executing it and, throwing their weight behind it, but it's just like, I love the look of it, but for the price, it's just, oh my God.
So many, unique carbon fiber molds had to be made to make this chassis and fixtures and the R&D work.
Yeah. Okay. Aside from crying about the price, you know what, Rob? I'm going to take this a different direction. What do you think kind of lap times this thing is going to do? Do you think this thing's going to like really like rip on track
Lotus,
and kind of?
Yeah. I mean, it freaking better. Lotus is saying that from their like computer testing from their models, it will be as fast or faster than a modern GT3 car.
Wow.
So it doesn't. Obviously, it's not exactly. You're not exactly getting a lot for your money, since you can go buy a modern GT3 Cup car, like a 911 Cup car, for $250,000, $300,000. It's not exactly good value, but you will look way better doing it. There's the stats on this. They say they did 1,000 hours of CFD testing. It makes 1,700 pounds of downforce at 150 pounds. It weighs less than 1,700 pounds.
Wow. And
the targeted power output is 819 horsepower at 8,800 RPM.
What? You're telling me it's only as fast as a GT3 car?
That I am surprised it won't be faster than that.
Well, that's what they said. They said they did this in a computer, so we'll see what the real life is. I bet it varies by track.
Right.
Too,
it's going to weigh 1,000 pounds less than a GT3 car and have 300 more horsepower.
Yeah. I feel like a track, for example, like Laguna Seca, I feel like this car should be faster at Laguna Seca. The reason why I bring that up is because the elevation going up that backstretch, this thing is power to weight. It's going to rocket itself up that.
Yeah.
But maybe I'm wrong. It's also super light. I feel like it would go through that corkscrew. I would imagine it would be able to carry more speed through that. All pure speculation. I am curious, though, is this going to embarrass some cars? Is this going to really embarrass some cars? It's interesting.
We may never know, considering they're only making 10. So I think.
Oh my God, we have no idea.
We
will not know.
I mean, maybe Lotus will grace us. They probably will by like taking this thing around a few tracks, taking it to some events. I'm sure the internet will get to hear what it sounds like, but what do you got? 5 out of the 10 people who don't just stick it in their living room, right? Who actually drive it. And then 1 out of those 5 are going to be good at driving, are going to be able to drive it. That's the thing. I mean, it says it has ABS. It doesn't say anything about traction control.
I don't think there's room to install traction control.
800 horsepower, 1,500 pounds. Like,
Oh my God.
yeah, you need some chops to drive this thing for sure.
And 1,000 hours of CFD testing. That's crazy.
Right. It's going to be an aero monster too. You know?
It's one big wing, basically, with a head sticking out.
Yeah. That side profile is incredible. The
Yeah.
two wedges, right? The wedge over the front wheels and then the wedge leading up to the wing. It is beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah.
I would
It's a
hate
really
I would
great
hate
car.
more about like elitism and the 1% of the 1% and how, you know, every automaker, all they do now is focus on making cars that no one can afford. But this is pretty sick. I do like this.
I can't disagree. It's too bad. I cannot disagree. The thing that I would love though is maybe like the Nordschleifer. If somebody threw that around the Nürburgring with some serious anger, what kind of time? I just want to know. I want to know.
Yeah, at least grace us, Lotus, by like, you know, running this thing around a few tracks so we can stack it up next to everybody
Because
else.
it is interesting to say, hey, let's take a really old concept like a Can-Am car and apply all the new tech to it with essentially like the same limitations of a Can-Am car. Like they're not changing the spec series. I'm sure there's specs that they're not following with Can-Am, but the overall identity of a Can-Am car is there, just with like new material. And what does that relate to in today's, you know, spectrum of race cars, and how does it stack up against like an old Can-Am car? Like what kind of times would that put down at Nürburgring, or like, you know, whatever track that they've been done? The only issue with that would be tire tech. You'd have to, like, honestly, to do it right, you would have to on the same day take an old Can-Am car that's
And
still
those
in
tracks
good
would be so
running
different.
order.
Like today,
Yeah.
even if they were the same layout, like the tarmac would just be so different.
Yeah, you'd have to do it like
You'd run them on the
today.
same day, same tire.
Same day, same tire, yeah, exactly. And be
Or
like,
similar
what
tires.
kind of advancement did you make? That'd be really cool.
Yeah. Whew. Tell you what, I'm getting this instead of a Radical, you know?
All right, we're gonna have some like crazy FMK
Yeah.
segments, some serious unrealistic
Imagine
stuff,
showing up to your to a track day with this. You show up, was it Toronto Motorsport Park? You
yeah.
just show up there on an open track day, pull this thing off your trailer. Jesus.
Unreal. People, honestly, I think people would be like, "Wow, that guy made a really cool car in his garage." I
Oh,
really
yeah.
think that's what people.
This would register with so few people that this
Yeah.
was like $1 million. They would think you're either in a historic racing series and this is your old ass Can-Am car, or it's a kit car.
What kid is that?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, damn, you did a really nice job painting this. You know, like, wow,
really-
this panel fitment's surprisingly good.
This is really pretty.
Yeah.
What Lotus did you model this after? I'm not familiar. Was Lotus in Can-Am?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man. All right. Well, on that bombshell, let's call it. Comment down below. Let us know if you had any other extra thoughts about this endeavor from Lotus.
Do you think other manufacturers are going to join them? That's what I'm really curious to see. I'm wondering if Porsche or someone else will say, hey, you know what? We're going to make some non-street legal cars too. And to go on a little bit longer. And I think this interesting. I don't know what the laws are in Europe about this, but you know, I've gone through the US laws about EPA regulation of ICE engines and modifying ICE engines and catalytic converters and all that type of stuff, emissions control. I don't think they could sell this car in America, at least by normal standards. And, you know, the rich will do whatever they want. I'm sure they'll figure out, you know, if you've got the money, you'll figure it out. But I don't think you could sell this in America because it doesn't meet emission standards. And I think there are even standards for off-road only cars. You know, I'm not sure about that. I don't know. Maybe you can.
Interesting.
But
We're thinking about it. I didn't really.
Yeah, I'm curious to see if like Porsche or someone else follows suit with some super special heritage race car replicas like this. Because I mean, if Porsche came and said, "Oh, we're gonna make," they already did. What am I even saying? They already did. Porsche has the 935. Let's see. if I can find this quickly enough. Okay. They made a 935 homage that's like this naked carbon fiber thing that's based off of a GT2 RS. And it's like fully rebodied to look like the 935 race car, like slant nose.
I've seen this, with a 70 number on the side. Yep.
Yeah.
Martini livery. Yep.
So I guess in a way they already are. Although I bet you this thing still has the same exact engines as GT2 RS. Like it'll have the catalytic converter still on it and all the emission stuff still on it. Mm-hmm. But there you go. Huh.
It's going to be wild, I think. I think you're spot on. I think more and more manufacturers are going to be doing this.
Yeah.
If there's enough dollar signs there and they're actually profitable, it does seem to be easier to make a lot of money
Lotus
off
thinks
a few
it's
cars.
profitable. I don't think the way Lotus has been run recently, I don't think they would do it if they didn't think they were going to make money doing it.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Cool. Well, anything else on your end? I think we're good on my end.
No, yeah. That's it, guys. That's it.
Awesome. Well, thanks for listening to yet another episode. More stuff to come. And, thanks for listening.
Absolutely. Till next time.
See ya.